Well, good evening, Colorado and the Rocky Mountain Mile High region. What is up? It is Denver Sports Tonight, also a special edition of Orange and Blue today. On a Saturday, it's our pregame show. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and Mace. Kansas City hopefully is good to you this year and good for the Broncos with a nice little win on the road.
It hasn't been good to the Broncos in a long time, though. You've got to go all the way back to September of 2015 for the last time the Broncos got a win at Arrowhead Stadium. They snapped the streak in the series, home and away, of course, with that win 12 and a half months ago. But Arrowhead Stadium remains a house of horrors historically for the Broncos. I mean, they got the wins the years that Peyton Manning was there. They won in 2012, 13, 14, 15. They even had a win in 2011 with Tim Tebow before that.
That was the Lance Ball game, right? Didn't Lance Ball get like 35 carries in that game?
Not 35 carries, but remember they came out and Willis McGahee, he was injured, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Noshawn Moreno came in and was terrific. Looked better than he had at any point in his career to that juncture. And then he tore his ACL. I mean, it was really sad for Noshawn, and we didn't really see Noshawn's potential again until the 2013 Super Bowl 48 season. So that, and of course, the other thing is one of those games where the offense just wasn't moving the ball, and Tim Tebow, they didn't trust him to pass it at all. But then he hit Eric Decker over the top down the sideline. I mean, I remember when that happened in the press box, the reaction, at least in the Denver contingent, was just laughter at the absurdity of not being able to do anything passing the ball. It was one of those games where Tebow, when he did throw, it was like he was two-hopping into the shortstop.
Yep.
And then, lo and behold, just pulls that rabbit out of his hat.
Some magic, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, you had a 5-game winning streak there for the Broncos at Arrowhead. But since then, it's been an 8-game losing streak that I think everybody at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, is anxious to end and excited about the opportunity of potentially ending it against an undefeated Kansas City team.
Right. And I like what Mike McGlinchey told us in the locker room, Mace, is like, they're not there to play spoiler, right? They know that they can play good football. And what Adam Troutman said, you're not going to lose twice from that Ravens game.
Yeah. Play the McGlinchey clip, because this is the mindset that you didn't hear a lot of people saying it in the locker room. McGlinchey is kind of a spokesperson in there, but there's a little bit of an edge to what he says here. And I like hearing that. And this really, I think, reflects where the Broncos are mentally. Let's listen to Mike McGlinchey.
We're a pretty successful football team right now, and I don't think we're really focused on playing spoiler. We just want to get a win. We're in a position to do some damage here in this conference, and we're in a position that we haven't been in before in the last few years, and we want to take advantage of that. It's not about playing spoiler and breaking the undefeated streak. It's about getting our next win, and that's what we're focused on.
But another game to kind of see.
Yeah, that's what their focus is, Mace.
Yes.
It's not spoiler. It's about them playing good football like they know they can, even though that didn't happen against Baltimore.
That's the thing. They know they can. And you're coming off of a disappointing game. But you and I talked about it heading into last week. It wasn't just about the Ravens game. Obviously, they take it one game at a time. But it was this 3-game streak. I mean, we talked about it last week. You and I have talked about this 3-game run here as being the toughest of the season since May, because we both were right about Atlanta. They're pretty good. That you put Kirk Cousins back in that offense, he can run so well, with Raheem Morris coming over from the Rams, with Zach Robinson calling the plays. It was just a matter of time before they were going to figure things out, and they're figuring things out.
Oh, yeah.
So Atlanta on the backside of Kansas City. If you get one of these 3 games, you're feeling pretty good. So no reason to panic. And also, hey, you look at the end of last Sunday, the Broncos were still in a playoff spot. If we're looking around the AFC, really huge result potentially for the Broncos Thursday night with the Bengals not getting it done in Baltimore, failing on that 2-point conversion. You can debate whether there should have been a penalty or two called or not down there. But the Bengals are sitting at 4-6. They've still got some tough games left. They're having trouble getting traction in the postseason race. If the Broncos get one of these next two games, Cease, and they're sitting at 6-5 after the Atlanta game with Las Vegas, Cleveland, Indianapolis, which is very mid on the other side of that, they are in position to get that number 7 spot. They are in good shape, even though last week was obviously a letdown. I think there were a lot of hopes, but they didn't pan out, but it doesn't mean it's not going to pan out in the future.
Yeah, the reality is, are you in the upper echelon in the elite like where Baltimore's at? No. But can you make the postseason? Yes. What can Bo Nix do in this contest as we look to Kansas City's defense now with Josh Uche to rush the passer, something they weren't really doing? They're playing sound football all the way around. And I've got some defensive stats for their ground defense, which is depressing. But let's start with Bo Nix, and I guess maybe the rushing attack is there for Bo as well because he might have to run a little bit more in this contest. KC is well-disciplined. It's a Spagnuolo defense. I believe his record is 11-1 against rookie quarterbacks, with the only one being Justin Herbert. It's a pretty good one. Can Bo be number 2? This is Bo's first time against Mahomes. You know, that's something to be excited about. Kansas City's got their franchise guy. Hopefully Denver does as well. What are we expecting from Bo on Sunday?
Well, first of all, you mentioned the one loss to Justin Herbert when he was a rookie with the Chargers in 2020. That was a meaningless game for Kansas City.
Bingo.
Ending that season in week 17. It was a 16-game season, 17-week season back then. And in a 3/4 empty Arrowhead Stadium because of the pandemic. So Chiefs resting their starters, only about 16,000 people in the stands at Arrowhead. You know, it's set up that way. Right. So when it's been normal, Spags as Chiefs defensive coordinator, they haven't lost to a rookie, right? Mm-hmm. So it's got to be Bo Nix making good decisions. You mentioned his legs. That's something that you have to play into. But this is also where you get a nice little measuring stick on Bo Nix. I mean, it wasn't a great game for Bo Nix last week in Baltimore. But if you're going down the list of reasons why the Broncos lost that game, Bo Nix is pretty far down the list. I mean, the pick really wasn't on him.
No,
it was on Lil Jordan Humphrey. If you hit the guy in the hands, he's got to catch it, right? So it's a bounce back game for Bo Nix, but more bounce back of like him leading this team rather than an individual bounce back. He's a different quarterback. He's grown from where he was. And that's something that Joe Lombardi touched on Thursday, talking about Bo Nix compared to where he was early in the season, coming off of a bad week or two to start the year.
Yeah, I think, we wasn't our first tough game. Our first two weren't real, we weren't doing great offensively, and just the same. He's a rookie, but he's got a lot of experience and he's a professional. So, just get on to the next play, get on to the next game, and he's got a good attitude with that kind of thing. So he's a mentally strong guy.
You love the attitude, you love the approach, and I love the fact that Coach Lombardi says professional, Mace, because guys can be pros, but can they be professional? We know with Bo Nix, that answer is yes.
Professional means putting something behind you in a hurry.
Yep.
Means getting past it. Professional means elevating your teammates and making them better and picking them up when they're a little bit down and maybe having some frustrating moments. We're seeing that from Bo Nix with Troy Franklin. I know everybody out there is probably frustrated with the near misses for Troy Franklin. The big plays are coming. You can feel it.
Yes.
And once they come, I think they're going to come in bunches for those two working together. It was interesting. I chatted with Troy Franklin for a little bit on Thursday, and he said, like, in terms of getting to the point when you're just reacting and not thinking, that when he was in Oregon, he said he hit that in his second year there. And I asked him, I said, does that kind of have, knowing that it takes a year plus, is that helping you to kind of understand, okay, you have to trust the process here because it's not going to happen in the snap of a finger? And he said, yeah, that's that. And plus he's got a pretty short memory. But Bo, the way he's kind of helping him, and yeah, the way Bo is continuing to give to target him, that's leadership as well. That's a veteran presence. Bo Nix, the on the roster, it may say R next to his name when it lists the experience, but I think now we're here 9 games into the season. We're starting to reach the point where he's not really a rookie anymore in terms of the experience that he's accumulated. And also atop that is the maturity and leadership that he brings. And we see it in evidence with how he's continuing to make sure that Troy Franklin gets some opportunities. Because I think also from working with Troy Franklin, Bo knows that it's going to come with Troy. And maybe it comes this week. What better time than in Arrowhead Stadium to shut up 75,000 screaming red-clad Chiefs fans?
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be exciting. And with experience that he has, and when you act upon experience, that creates wisdom. But it was probably before the Saints game, we asked the question, when is a rookie not a rookie?
Yeah.
You know, we're in a different, I've called it a second season on the fan base. We had the first season with Bo, and now we're at this point halfway. It's like, okay, this is the second season where you can really tell some growth here with Bo. And with Franklin, Bo said it earlier this week, we're overthinking it.
Yeah.
So it just needs to be more organic, and they're going to keep trying it. You know, maybe a little Jordan Humphrey has a shorter leash because he's had 2 turnovers in opening drives in the last 2 weeks. Maybe there's something there. Coach Sean Payton has kind of alluded to, hey, if you're not making plays, you're turning the ball over, we'll find someone else. Maybe that was for little Jordan, maybe not. But they're still going to keep trying Troy, and maybe it hits this week.
Well, that's where the experience and the potential comes into play. Respectfully to little Jordan Humphrey, having been around the league a few years, there does come a point where you know who and what he is. And is his upside there? Certainly he doesn't have the same upside as Troy Franklin. To me, for little Jordan Humphrey, it's at what point do you say, all right, let's give A.T. Perry a whirl? Because again, youth and upside. He's a guy that I get questions on weekly. I know you probably see him on the text line on the radio side.
Oh, yeah.
People wondering, okay, when are we going to get a glimpse? I hope that's coming at some point because he too has promise. I mean, I've sort of said, hey, you got to trust the kids here, right? Trust if you give some elevations to A.T. Perry, if you keep giving Troy Franklin opportunities, I think you're going to find 2 players that can help, that can substantially help you short and long term. And then maybe by the postseason, you're talking about really seeing something consistently explosive if you can get to the postseason. This is another thing. Like, I mean, we're having a postseason conversation and the Broncos are legitimately in that race. And yet this is a team that is still defined by what it is becoming. A lot of teams that have this sort of youth all over the place, starting with quarterback, we're talking about them at this point being what, 2-8, 3-7, and looking for signs of progress. Even if the Broncos lose this game on Sunday, they're 5-5 and may well still have that number 7 spot to themselves in the postseason. So it's a chance to do a lot of good things. It's a chance to grow as a young team, and yet also a chance to be the best Broncos team that's been around here since 2016, at least. That's pretty exciting.
Get to the postseason. That's exciting stuff as well. Now, can you run the football? Here's some interesting numbers for you, Mace. Most teams just give up running the ball against Kansas City. 17 attempts per game on average. 3 yards a carry on average to opposing running backs. They're on pace to be one of the best run-stopping units that we've seen in recent memory. And 60 yards? No running back has topped 60 yards this season against this defense. And Javonte gets to 60. We say that's a good game. None of these other top-notch running backs that they've faced have gone over 60. So is it Javonte? Is it Estime? Is it Jalil? Is it all three? And can they, will they run more than 17 times as a team?
I mean, it's wild to think the only 100-yard rusher against the Chiefs this year is a quarterback.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson back in week 1, because Derrick Henry had 46 yards on 13 carries.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry week 1 didn't look like he was going to be on pace for 2,000 yards. And then, well, after that, the deluge arrived with Derrick Henry.
Yes.
Part of it, obviously, in terms of limiting the runs, it's not just the effectiveness of their run defense. It's also that they're the Chiefs, and they tend to play from ahead.
Yep.
And they tend to force you into chase mode. Although it was really interesting how the game with Tampa Bay evolved on Monday night with Baker Mayfield really dicing them up. I mean, Baker Mayfield and Joe Burrow are two quarterbacks who would be in the MVP conversation if their teams overall were a bit better. But Mayfield's playing like an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
And kept him in it. But you look at the Bucs running game, and I mean, Rachaad White only had 3 carries. Bucky Irving had 7 carries. Are these teams going away from it too quickly? And this is where something Sean Payton has talked about, like the balance between sticking with your game plan and knowing when to adjust. This is something that comes into play because if your defense can contain Mahomes and limit the damage, and we have seen now twice last year, Vance Joseph's defense kept Patrick Mahomes and company in check. Obviously, that second game in Denver, Mahomes was sick.
Right.
The first game in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium on that Thursday night, Mahomes was hale and hearty. And the defense did such yeoman's work that night, just a few weeks removed from the 70 burger in Miami, that the Broncos were getting shut out, and it didn't feel like they were in it, but then they got 1 touchdown drive and got a 2-point conversion. You looked up and like, oh my goodness, this is a 1-score game. How is this a 1-score game? Because it felt so desultory because the offense was so bad. Well, this was the start of a Broncos defense that against most opponents, except really the Lions and Ravens this year, Lions last year, Ravens last year, this Broncos defense has choked the life out of teams. And it really started with that Kansas City game on Thursday night. And so this is a case where if the defense can do what it has done the last 2 games against the Chiefs and keep them under control, keep them under wraps, buy time for the offense to figure it out, then maybe you can be patient and stick with the running game and not get away from it. And then those jabs that go nowhere in the first half, they start becoming some sledgehammer blows in the second half.
Is that Audric Estime that does that?
And this is where Audric Estime comes into play.
Okay, there you go.
Let's hear from Adam Troutman talking about Estime and potential opportunities.
Oh, I think he's really smart. I think he works really hard. And, I mean, yeah, if he gets more opportunities, then obviously great. But obviously, he's a rookie, so it didn't just fall into his lap. But he has earned touches, and last week he ran really well. So hopefully that continues.
He's earned touches.
I liked hearing that.
I did too. That was a key thing. You heard Sean Payton on Monday talking about Estime potentially getting more of an opportunity. But having a teammate and a leader like Troutman is in that room saying he's earned more work, even with the fumbles. And I think this is where the week of Estime carrying the ball around the facility, I think he earned some respect from teammates that week. You know, doing the embarrassing thing. It was Javonte Williams' idea to say, dude, you're going to carry this ball. You're just going to, until you stop putting it on the ground, you're going to carry this ball everywhere. Right. And, well, let's hear from Audric Estime kind of talking about that week and what happened, an exchange that he and I had on Wednesday.
I think so, because, like, when I was walking around the facility, like, I'll just be eating and I hold it and someone will come punch me. So it just kind of made me have some muscle memory whenever I'm coming next to someone or I'm entering contact to make sure I squeeze onto it. So I think it helped.
Did anyone get it out when they tried to punch you?
No one got it out. I had to make sure.
How many guys kind of did that?
It was like everyone, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. Every time I walked past someone, I expected it, so no one got it out, though.
Had to say it twice.
Yep. Wanted to make sure you reminded me. No one got out.
Nobody got him. That's good, right? I think shame can be a powerful tool. And if you're walking around or eating one-handed at the lunchroom, a little bit of shame, man. You're going to remember that.
But he's like, the whole team was involved. This is another thing. And again, how you earn respect from the veterans. Like, everyone was doing this to him.
Yep.
And he held on to the ball. And the other thing is also, it's like I said, it's an embarrassing thing that you got to go through, but you do it. It's one of the ways you earn respect. So that's why you hear somebody like Troutman saying, hey, he's earned more touches. Give him more opportunities. Hopefully it works out better if it does happen like this, but it's funny that we talked about Noshawn getting those chances way back in 2011 for a November game at Arrowhead on what looks like it'll be a similarly sunny and spectacular and crisp football day, the kind of autumn day that you live for when you're covering this sport. And maybe this is going to be a breakthrough moment for Estime. I just hope it works out better than it did for Noshawn leaving the game with an injury 13 years ago. But I'm excited to see more of Estime because he does have that burst, man. I mean, you can see it. Like it's a special burst that he possesses.
Yep. And he's got power to go along with it. Unlike Jaleel, who has the burst, he doesn't barely keep his feet. His contact balance is poor.
He's got to operate outside.
Yes.
To be most effective. Now he's fearless enough to go inside.
Yes.
It says a lot for him, but it's not where he's most effective. Audric Estime, most effective between the tackles. You create those holes, the opportunities are there. And the line is creating those holes as well.
Yes. So follow it, stay patient with it, and just hit them hard. Audric Estime can do just that. We will see if Estime leads the way on the ground and has a breakout performance against the Kansas City Chiefs. It is Denver Sports Tonight, also a special edition of Orange Blue today. So you may be watching us on YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We need you to subscribe if you're watching, please. Thank you very much for that. We're begging you. We're not above begging. That's right. And we're begging the Denver Broncos to get on the winning track. How do they do that against Kansas City when their offense seems to be clicking with DeAndre Hopkins? We're going to talk a little Nuke Hopkins versus PS2. That's coming up next. All right, mics are still hot.
Begging. I know you want to leave me, but I refuse to let you go.
I'm leaving all this
if I had to beg and plead for your sympathy, I don't mind, because you mean that much to me. Ain't too proud to beg. Sweet darling. Please don't leave me, girl.
All right.
Sorry, when you say beg, I had to. It instantly.
It went there.
It went there, and now I got to play it next time I'm driving somewhere. I'm gonna have to play the Temptations, man.
Okay, well there you go.
Temptations, Four Tops. I'm all about the '60s Motown.
Let's do that up. So we got an 8-minute segment here, another 8-minute segment. All this is left in. So YouTube, hi.
Hi.
Hi. We're doing radio.
I just embarrassed myself singing on YouTube.
Nah, it's fine. It's fine. All right, here we go. 8-minute segment, Nuke Hopkins, and we'll go on in 3, 2, 1. Denver Sports Tonight. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason here talking about the Broncos defense against Nuke Hopkins. Now, Kansas City's offense had been, kind of stumbling a little bit, kind of struggling a little bit. Wide receiver injuries, suspension we were all waiting for that didn't happen with Rashee Rice. So you look at it now, and they get Nuke Hopkins in a trade. And last week he was doing the Remember the Titans dance because it was working. Travis Kelce starting the season a little bit slower. Last couple of games, Travis Kelce has looked like, Travis Kelce. So dealing with Nuke Hopkins, the responsibility of Pat Surtain, and also dealing with Kelce, arguably the best tight end we've ever seen in pro football.
Yeah, and it was fair to wonder if Father Time was starting to catch up with Travis Kelce based on what we saw early in the season. I think now we've got our answer. The answer is you just needed somebody else to get the defense's attention.
Yep.
Now, they don't have the constellation of stars in terms of offensive weaponry that the Baltimore Ravens possess. So it's not the same kind of pick your poison equation that helped doom the Broncos last Sunday. But it still does create some challenges, and we do know about the Broncos' historic struggles against tight ends. Now, that being said, they contained Travis Kelce in the second game in Denver last season, but now you have somebody who can take some of the pressure off. And then, oh, by the way, even though it hasn't been very consistent, Xavier Worthy has some capability there as well, and he's got 3 touchdowns himself on the season.
Yeah, and he can teleport down the field. So you've got speed to take off the top. You've got Nuke Hopkins running perfect routes and still having great hands. And then you have Travis Kelce. And, Kareem Hunt running the ball. Now, not for many yards per carry, but he's given a heavy workload, Mace. So against the Broncos, you're going to, King Henry broke you, right? It's Derrick Henry. But I think shoring yourself up against the run, you've got enough to handle on that passing game. If Kareem Hunt beats you, so be it. You don't want Kelce, Hopkins, Xavier to beat you if you're Vance Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, look at Kareem Hunt in the last 4 games. Average per carry, 3.8, 3.5, 2.8, 3.9.
It's not great, Bob.
No, but you know what he has done in all 4 of those games? He's scored.
Touchdowns.
Yes, and he also has 200-yard games in those 4. They're getting ahead and they're feeding him.
So take him out the game. Let him get ahead. So they can't do that.
Mahomes has had to do less, partially because of the defense, partially because with Worthy trying to get him up to speed and really not having a trustworthy, pardon the pun, wide receiver target in the early part of the season. I think the dynamic did start to change Monday night against Tampa Bay.
Yes.
And that's something that probably offers a cause for concern. Another cause for concern is going to be the field at Arrowhead Stadium. Of course, that game against Tampa Bay Monday night, it was raining. Arrowhead Stadium is going to host a college football game Saturday. Iowa State playing Kansas because the Jayhawks are playing their home games. They played early this season out at Sporting KC's stadium on the Kansas side. Now they're playing this part of the season at Arrowhead, which is why the Buffs are going to go play at Arrowhead later on this month.
Right.
And with that rain, how is the field going to be on Sunday? If it's a bad field, it definitely will affect everybody. But usually bad field, bad conditions tend to affect the defense more than the offense because the offense knows where they're going in terms of the routes they're running, the marks they want to hit, and the defense is reacting to that. So this is the worrisome thing here is, say, Hopkins getting a play, say, Travis Kelce getting the ball, and then you slip on what may be a very muddy track on Sunday. Right. And then a moderate game becomes an explosive. So that's another layer to what the Broncos are dealing with this week.
Yeah, and you had me nervous there talking about the track because it's DeAndre Hopkins. He can still cut a rug, Mace. So if he does a little dead leg, take it away, and then all of a sudden you're slipping, sliding, and Hopkins is open. Vance Joseph talked about it. You want to set this up, or you want me to just play the clip? He talked about Hopkins and the complications therein.
Yeah, it's changed the dynamic for them. I mean, credit to Brett Veach for doing his thing and getting Hopkins at a pretty reasonable price from the Tennessee Titans. But yeah, it's a game changer for the Chiefs. Here's VJ talking about Hopkins.
Well, it's a target he can find, and watching Hop, I mean, he's found his way quickly within the offense. I mean, this offense versus zones find soft spots all over the field, and he's doing those things right now. So it's looked seamless so far. But obviously having Hop, that provides one more target for him, and you have to cover Kelsey, and you got to cover, Hop. Now, Worthy, even Hunt out of the backfield. It's challenging.
Challenging. He mentions the zone, Mace. We've talked a little bit about the zone they used against Baltimore. I'm hoping it's less this week.
I am too. He mentioned that. And sometimes when you're dealing with weapons, you feel like the plethora of weapons, I should say, you feel like you have to go zone to counter that. But this team's better in man, and you got to trust what you have in coverage. And this means, trusting PS2 one-on-one with a savvy and accomplished veteran like DeAndre Hopkins. And also trusting Riley Moss and his speed and athleticism going up against Xavier Worthy. Because I'm expecting that's going to be the matchup on Sunday more often than not, is Moss on Worthy. Riley has got extreme athleticism.
Yep.
You got to trust that in this game. And whatever will be, will be.
And he's got the short memory too. So in case there's a big play, which we don't want, but if it happens because it's football and these things happen, he'll be able to recover from that on the mental side, not let something kind of carry with him. It is Denver Sports Tonight. It is Cecil, Lammey, and Andrew Mason, also with a special edition of Orange and Blue today. And we love you guys. We'd love if the Broncos defense would contain Pat Mahomes. The pass rushers had some things to say about Mr. Mahomes. You'll hear from Nick Benito. You will hear from Jonah Ellis on the superstar quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk containing Mahomes coming up next. All right, mics are still hot.
All right.
Let's give them 7 minutes here. So this one will be a little abbreviated. And I have Ellis on Mahomes, and I have Benito on containing Mahomes.
And then we'll go right into our other thing.
Yeah, and then we'll stop this, and then we'll be live on Friday. Hi, everybody. Okay, here we go. Back on 7 minutes in 3, 2, 1. Denver Sports Tonight. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason talking Denver Broncos football and containing Pat Mahomes. I don't want to say stopping Pat Mahomes, Mace. That sounds ridiculous. Containing Pat Mahomes is something this Broncos defense has done. What are some of the keys, the clues, things that we'll be looking for on Sunday to kind of see if the Broncos are doing just that?
Watch the depth of the edges. Because if they go too deep and they let Patrick Mahomes get in front of them as he climbs the pocket, that's something that's going to cause you problems. This is where you're focused on contain. You have to be disciplined, not simply attacking. And you're focused on the collective rush getting home rather than just an individual play. It's not just Mahomes. It's a very good offensive line. Remember, after Super Bowl 55, the Chiefs adjusted their team building around Mahomes to emphasize the offensive line. That's why you see you see 3 big contract guys up there in the starting 5, including Creed Humphrey recently got that big deal at center. There's a method to that madness because they know everything starts with protecting Patrick Mahomes, and it's why they prioritized line over an exceptional skill player like Tyreek Hill.
Yep, they built in the trenches, and it helps protecting Mahomes, who can protect himself with running the ball. He might run more than Jackson, and I don't even think that's outlandish to suggest, Mace, because Lamar Jackson didn't really run against Denver last week, and it worked. He sliced him up from the pocket. How do you contain Mahomes? Nick Benito was asked in the locker room earlier this week. Here's what Benito had to say.
Yeah, I mean, just number one, stopping the run. And then, obviously in passing situations, we got to get after Pat. We got to contain him. We can't make life easy for him because, obviously we all know what he can do. So
he's a magic man back there. So containing him means being very disciplined as a rusher. Don't rush too far out of your lane and create an opportunity, not for him to even run, just for him to extend that play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's where trouble does happen. He extends the play, breaks off the routes. And this is part of the challenge that you've got with those corners, and why, as we were talking about earlier, you maybe don't want to do zone because of how it worked last week, but why some teams do zone coverage is because if you're telling your corners to just plaster, but then Mahomes extends the play, even if he's in the pocket and can't take off, and he extends the play and the receivers break things off, that's where chaos starts to happen. And that's where a corner all of a sudden just reacts a little tick slow, and then boom, you have an explosive and you're in trouble.
Yep. And he can gash you on the ground as well. Now, Jonah Ellis, one of our favorite guys to talk to, he talked about Mahomes and, well, what's the rookie looking forward to on Sunday? Here's what Jonah Ellis had to say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously his scrambling ability is elite. He gets his read, and then he checks the pocket on where he can scramble to if he doesn't have his first read. So you can tell that he can run, he can move, he can extend plays and make big plays off of it. So for as pass rushers, when we have the chance to pass rush, we know we have to contain them. And yeah,
that ability to check, like you mentioned, how rare is that?
I mean, it's really impressive to watch him do it. I could never imagine trying to do that when how many guys are rushing you, but it's really impressive to watch him do that.
It's a rare trait, Mace.
Yeah, in the chaos of a pass rush, the ability to check the rushers and adjust. I mean, you've gone against the two best quarterbacks here in terms of feel for the pass rush and ability to manipulate it and escape when the need arises in Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Like these are two. There's a reason why these two both have multiple MVP trophies on their case, because they have special abilities to them. And then the rest of it that you have to develop to be an effective quarterback, like operating in the pocket, going through your progressions, doing kind of the steady, stay on schedule things. They can both do that too. It's, Mahomes got there a little sooner than Lamar Jackson did, but as we saw last week, Lamar Jackson got there. So,
yes. Yep.
Yeah, it's tough, man. This is a heck of a challenge in back-to-back games from a team perspective, from a quarterback perspective. It's good to face this. I think it's even good for Bo Nix to be viewing this as he's on the sideline getting ready for his next possession and kind of looking out there and seeing what those quarterbacks are doing, because he's getting a sense of, okay, maybe I can't do the exact same things that they do, but this is the standard that I've got to try to reach.
Yep.
If I'm going to be successful in the NFL, I've got to be able to go punch for punch with these guys. So it's all good things long-term, even if the short-term might be a bit painful.
Bring out the competitor in all of us. Now, before we're out of here, super quick, Mace, Samaje Perine as a receiving back, we talked about Kareem Hunt, and you need to bottle him up on the ground. Our old friend Samaje there playing what you call the Jerick McKinnon role as a pass catcher for this team. Any concern there with the Broncos, who haven't stopped Kamani Vidal or Justice Hill? I know that those are young players. Samaje is not young, but he's a hell of a receiving back.
Yeah, I am curious, and I'm also curious to see what the plan is going to be at inside linebacker, because Quan Alexander's out of elevations here as we head into Saturday.
Yep.
Are they going to bump him up to the 53, or is it, okay, we got 3 out of Quan Alexander. Are we going to bump up Zach Cunningham and give him a whirl as well? Or are we going to just go all in with Justin Sternad there, getting all the snaps.
Yeah, that's something to monitor and watch.
Yeah, some interesting possibilities there that we will watch with great interest.
That we will. He is Andrew Mason. He is there in Kansas City. Check him out on all the socials at Mace Denver. And, of course, all of his reporting at denversports.com. You hear that sweet Ronnie James deal? You know that means we are out of here for tonight. Many thanks to Dante. He is the man of the box. He is Andrew Mason. I am Cecil Lammey saying thanks for listening, everyone. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty.